and welcome to Nana Teaches. Thanks for joining me today. I share tons of fun and engaging activities that grandparents can do with their grandchildren to make memories and also to teach those valuable skills like cooking, baking, sewing, woodworking, and so much more. I've got a fun special project to share today. We are going to be making lanyards, and because it's getting close to St. Patrick's Day, I thought we would make a very special lanyard for St. Patrick's Day. Why lanyards, you might ask me? Well, lanyards are the perfect project to do because they're so useful. So kids a lot of times will need to have a house key that they have to keep track of, or maybe they wear a lanyard around at school to keep their school ID on. And so I thought by making a lanyard, they could learn some basic sewing skills and have something practical and useful that they can use every single day. Now, to make a lanyard, it's fairly simple and there aren't a lot of materials that you're going to need. You will need some fabric, so a piece of fabric that measures 42 inches long and 4 inches wide. And you'll need some hardware. And we have a little clip on a what they call a D-ring, and we can get these anywhere. I'll leave the link below if you want to order them on Amazon or pick them up at your local craft store. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so we are going to need some supplies. These are just basic supplies. We're going to need some cotton fabric that measures 42 inches long by 4 inches wide. We'll need something called a swivel clip, and I'll leave the link below. And I always have some handy pins for keeping the fabric together. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our 42-inch long and 4-inch wide piece of fabric, and we're going to fold it in half, and we're going to press it with a pretty warm iron. I use it on the cotton setting, so it's pretty warm. We want to give it a good press. With children using the iron, you have to be really careful. You don't want any fingers burned. So there's a couple of ways that you can go about this. For older children, they can probably use the iron no problem, but for younger children, you could use the iron and they could fold over the fabric, just being careful about where their fingers are. Or you could use the hand over hand method. When somebody's learning something, they can hold it and get the feel of how to use it, and in your hand is kind of over guiding it and making sure that nothing happens. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to open up that fabric, and you can see the line, the crease line in the middle. We're going to fold over the side to match the crease line, and we're going to give it another good press. On this part of the project, I noticed that it was helpful to have a bottle of water, like a spray bottle that I spritz, give it a good spritz, because it will make a little bit better crease in there for you, and it'll lay flat, which is what you want it to do. You want it to be as flat as possible. Then we're going to turn the fabric over. We're going to do the same on the other side and just work our way down. I really like this fabric that we're using for St. Patrick's Day. It's a lot of fun. My granddaughter picked it out. She thought this would be perfect for this project, but really you can use any fabric. I think we were looking at fabric with small hearts on it for Valentine's Day, or they can use a fabric that has their interests, like horses or baseballs or whatever they're interested in. I think one of the best parts of sewing projects for kids is to be able to go and pick out the fabric that they really like. Okay, so now we've got both sides folded over to the center, and we've got a nice crease, and then we're going to go back and fold the whole thing in half. This part is pretty easy, and again I use the spritz bottle to give me a nice flat fold. And we have to remind kids that we don't use, we don't leave the iron on a fabric for too long because it'll burn. Even the cotton that can withstand a little higher temps, we don't want to leave on, just let the iron sit on it for a long period of time. All right, so you can see how we have this nice fold. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to attach our swivel clip in the end. So we're going to take one of the ends and we're just going to thread it through the bottom of the swivel clip. And it's a little tight, but we just slide it to the middle. Just like this. And then the next step is probably the trickiest in the whole process, but it's not difficult. We're going to take the two ends and we're going to sew them together. So what we're going to do is you're going to place the two together, the two ends together. You're going to open up the fabric. And it's got a good press, so it's can be a little tricky. And then you're going to open up the fabric of the other end and match it now right sides together. Make sure that you've got right sides together. And you're going to match up the top here. I use these clips to keep the fabric in place while I sew it, which is really handy. All right, so we're just going to sew a line right across the top end. And a good 3/4 inch seam allowance. You can do a little bit more. We're going to trim off the edges when we're done. Now, as I sew across here, I'm actually going to reinforce the seam. I'm going to use a method where I sew across it and then I turn it around and I'm going to sew back across it. This is just a way to reinforce a seam. I'm going to trim my thread. And then I'm just going to cut along the seam that I've just sewn and I'm going to trim all the extra fabric. You don't have to do this, but I do just so it reduces some of the bulk. Then you can see my pressed lines are still there. And I'm going to fold it back up. I've got a loop now with my D-ring on it. Now we're ready to move forward with the next step. Before we do that, we're going to want to take it over to our ironing board and give it a final press. This will make it easier for that final step of sewing the edges. So again, we want to get it to lay as flat as possible. And we can just slide the D-ring along as we go, no problem. If you want to use a little spritz of water on this, it would be perfectly fine. One of the finishing steps of this project is to sew along both edges. So we are going to give it a nice flat finish and then we will sew all the way around the loop on both edges to hold the whole thing together. We're going to sew along the edge here. We're going to try to get as close to the edge as possible. For younger sewers, you may move it in a bit, but the trick here is to teach them to use the foot on the sewing machine as a guide. So we're going to move the clasp. We're going to keep sewing along the edge until we get all the way around and then we'll back tack. And I'm using my fingers here to guide the fabric into the machine and to keep it flat so that it doesn't bulk up in one place. Sometimes people feel more comfortable guiding with the hand behind the foot and then one hand in front, but we want to also teach that you never pull or tug while you're sewing, you let the machine do the work for you. So I like to just kind of keep my fingers there to guide it. I'm following that inner right hand foot and going as slow as I need to keep it in line and keep it on track. And back tack, we'll take it out. We'll clip the threads. The closer you get to the edge, the better, but it's okay if you're not very close. We're going to find that line where the two connect, and we're going to sew across it at the bottom of our clip to secure the clip in there. And you can see that there. And now we're finished. I hope you liked our project today. Our St. Patrick's Day lanyard was a lot of fun to make. It's a simple project, and I hope it's given you lots of ideas of things that you can do with your grandchildren to make memories and to teach those valuable skills. Thank you for joining me today. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe below, and I hope you'll join me on my next adventure as we turn to baking.